The following transmission contains unencrypted instances of explicit language. Mature audiences are cleared to proceed.
This is really good.
What?
The foreign dignitary. If you want to start a war, assassinate a foreign dignitary.
Oh, this one was actually kind of harder to write than some of the others, for sure, because there's so little fucking tradecraft in it.
Yeah.
Let's go. David, I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. I miss the Cold War.
Yeah, me too. What are we going to do about it?
If we've learned anything from this podcast so far, there is one surefire way to start a war.
And that's to assassinate a foreign dignitary in another country. That's the only way.
But what would happen if some LARPing schmuck got caught up in the middle of our villainous plot?
Oh no, that would be terrible.
I think you mean terribly funny.
Do you think that the Russians really play Kerplunk with a chess clock?
I don't see why they wouldn't. David! Are we here today to talk about the man who knew too little?
Yes, we are.
Shall we begin? Let's begin.
The Bill Murray of 1997 is at something of a crossroads as an actor. He's just about to surprise audiences with his dramatic chops in the early 2000s, but in 1997 he's still the wisecracking, wink at the audience goofball that he's been playing for the previous 18 years. In some ways, The Man Who Knew Too Little represents the end of an era for Bill, but it was a damn fine era. I'm Todd.
And I'm Dave, and we like to talk about spy movies.
And when it came time for us to pick our first spy comedy, Dave was 100% firm on this one.
Oh yeah.
We're all just actors in the theater of life in this episode of Spies Like Us. So yeah, Dave, I pulled up Murray's filmography and thinking about 1997, and I was thinking like I would see like a hard change, like a hard transition from like the old Bill Murray of like whatchamacallit, Caddyshack, Ghostbusters. Stripes! Oh, dude, trivia time. Do you know who Stripes was written for?
No.
Cheech and Chong, dude.
Are you serious? That's hilarious.
It was supposed to be a Cheech and Chong movie.
Did Harold Ramis write it and then wanted to make it Cheech and Chong? Because I thought he did. I thought he wrote it, right?
I'm not sure who wrote it. But I heard it was written for Cheech and Chong, and they decided they didn't want to do it. So the studio was left with a script that they had already bought for a bunch of money or something.
And they were just like, Harold Ramis and Bill Murray, get on it. That's pretty funny.
So you got that old Bill Murray that we all know, love, and treasure, like from the early days, and he still hasn't. But like I said, like this edge gets fuzzy because I can see him in 1994's Ed Wood as Bunny Breckenridge.
Yeah.
I thought it was Beckenridge, but apparently it's Breckenridge. And where I just feel like that's the first Bill Murray, even though he's really only like tiny bit in that movie. Like he's played for a certain kind of like wistfulness humor that is like much less broad than what we had associated with his brand up until then.
Yeah. Ed Wood's probably like the first little hint at like a different Bill Murray that exists.
It is, in my opinion.
But especially with Groundhog Day, it wasn't super goofy. It was just kind of him, and he did a good job of playing that character. But I guess Groundhog Day would have came from Scrooge because he plays that executive type that's kind of like dismissive.
I still haven't seen Scrooged.
Oh my God, you got to see Scrooge.
Yeah, I know. But like, is there a pathos to the Scrooged character? Well, I guess there has to be, because like necessarily, like you can't tell the story of A Christmas Carol without feeling like something behind the facade of the character.
Uh-huh. Yeah, it's pretty much the same story, but in like modern day, like New York, where everybody's kind of mean and stuff. And he's kind of just this like executive that kind of is very dismissive. And it's a little bit different of a Bill Murray than you kind of, I guess we're used to, that like kind of snarky, pompous, like goofball type. Now we kind of have him as like this dismissive executive that's just like a smartass all the time. That's like really mean to people. And then you get that in Groundhog Day, and then Ed Wood. It's like the first hint at like maybe an artsy side to Bill Murray that we might get.
Right, which Wes Anderson then like totally latches onto and starts delivering like regular. In the 2000s, we start getting our regular dose of what we consider as like our modern Bill Murray.
We get like Rushmore. What he was in Hamlet. Wait, I didn't know Bill Murray was in it. That's pretty funny.
I don't think I saw that version.
Me either, but that's pretty funny. But no, we get Royal Tenenbaums in 01, Lost in Translation in 03, Coffee and Cigarettes, which is like as artsy as it gets. Yeah, that was him and Wu-Tang. Were in one of the shorts of Coffee and Cigarettes. That was pretty funny, actually, if you've never seen that.
So yeah, I just think the movie that we're going to talk about right now, though, like as we're talking about this like transition of the actor in through his transition from Stripes to what would you say? Like people were totally blown away by Lost in Translation, for instance,
Yeah,
right? That was
absolutely.
his purely dramatic role, and that was when I remember like critics were just going off of the charts on saying like, holy shit, this man is a different actor, absolutely has different potential than what anyone thought he was capable of.
Yeah.
And it's not like he still won't take a fucking paycheck to do a Garfield movie or something later.
Yeah.
But in a lot of ways, I think what is this, 1997? Yeah,
Yes.
1997, The Man Who Knew Too Little. It's still really mostly that old. It's kind of the end, I think, of his goofy period.
Yeah.
But there's,
I mean, we get old Bill Murray in this movie. We've heard this whole talk about like artsy Bill Murray. We definitely got old Bill Murray in this movie. And this is probably one of the last that we get like a purely, well, I don't know, I think Garfield.
right, I know. There's
Yeah.
exceptions to this rule. It's fuzzy, but there's
Yeah.
definitely a transition. I think this is part of it. Let's head to the briefing room, break down the tradecraft, what little there fucking is, of this movie. You ready to go?
Let's go.
All right, let's hit it.
Voice pattern recognized. Retinal scan complete. Validating security clearance. Clearance granted. You may now enter the briefing room.
David, The Man Who Knew Too Little was your choice, and I just want to hear from you. Like, what's your experience? What's your prior experience with this film? When did you first see it?
My family in general, my uncle and my mom and stuff are really big Bill Murray fans. So I saw it like about 3 or 4 times after it went to video, and it just hit me really quickly because as we started out our show with The Man Who Knew Too Much, and we were discussing in our like blocks of movies that we're doing, we got to do at least one funny movie, and I thought it would be a good kind of circling back with The Man Who Knew Too Little.
Oh yeah, fun. It's a super fun bookend. What was your what do you think were like your favorite Bill Murray roles that you loved him for, like prior to this movie coming across your field of view?
Oh, like just favorite Bill Murray? Yeah. I don't even know where to count. Like Caddyshack, Rushmore. Let's see, Lost in Translation is definitely one of my favorites. Ghostbusters.
Right.
He's
Now,
such a wide
now,
range.
right.
Zombieland.
Now, a lot of those you mentioned, other than Caddyshack, hadn't come out yet.
Yeah, that's right.
Like,
Oh, okay. So prior to this movie, yeah. So, yeah, it would have just been Ghostbusters and Caddyshack.
probably Groundhog Day.
Groundhog. Oh, that's right. Groundhog Day. Yeah, yeah. Those.
Kingpin is the year before this.
Oh, I definitely had seen Kingpin before this. That's right. Yeah.
And
Uh,
I'm looking at his list. There's also this movie Scrooged, which I keep getting told I need to see. I
oh
haven't
my
seen that.
God, you've never seen Scrooged?
No,
That's
yeah.
definitely one of my favorite movies. You definitely got to see it. It's hilarious. Like of the list of Christmas Carol remakes or I guess renditions, it's definitely up there. Like Muppets Christmas Carol and Scrooge, are definitely up there for like best renditions.
Now I hadn't seen this movie up until last week, um, for this podcast, and on my first watch through, or at least the majority of my first watch through, I was kind of like, are we really gonna do this? There's like no spying in it at all. But on
None.
rewatching and taking notes, like I've warmed up to it. It's
Yeah,
I think like because on my first watch, I think I went into it a little too analytical, you
yeah.
know, like I was ready to take notes, and I don't think that's the mental space you want to be in to enjoy this movie.
No, no, definitely not. I mean, even the characters that are serious, like them being so serious adds a lot to the comedy. Like you have the professionals and then they're just like in this like just off the wall screwball parody of the spy genre. And there's like very actually it was kind of tough for us to kind of go through the tradecraft because there was very little.
it is a little it is a little weird for a comedy in that like there's only a couple of funny characters in the movie. Well, actually no, now I can count like five that get comedy bits. But yeah, you're right. Like most of the cast is playing it straight.
Yeah.
Um, I've
But
seen like
the cast that's playing it straight is funny. Like Boris was hilarious, and he's like the most professional of all of them.
yeah, he's one of the ones I consider a comedic role.
Yeah,
Actually, yeah, yeah, yeah. But yeah, it's almost a one-man show though, with Bill Murray at the center, and I thought he was definitely adequate to it, and it was fun seeing him. If you like Bill Murray, can I throw out an idea though that I was thinking like of who else I think possibly could have been better in this movie?
oh,
I'd like
to play Wallace. Yeah.
Wallace Ritchie. Yeah,
Who?
I think I would like to see this movie with Chevy Chase. What
Oh,
do you
that could
think
have
of
been
that?
fun. Didn't he do a spy spoof?
The Fletch movies might be
Yeah,
something like that, but not
yeah.
quite.
I feel like he did. Yeah, I think it was Fletch. Maybe I don't know.
We'll look into it.
Yeah, we'll have to maybe keep a note for possible future Spies Like Us title.
But yeah, the comedic bits, they they actually improved for me on rewatching. Like I found myself laughing more on the third time around than on the first, if that makes any sense. Because some of it is actually kind of subtle.
Yeah, yeah.
Some of the best comedic bits are kind of subtle. Let's put it
Mhm.
that way.
Yeah.
Another thing I want to say is that the script is actually really tight. Like,
Yeah. It was based on a novel.
yes,
Yeah.
but like how like I'm always prying around like all of our movies that we've done so far, like 1934, like 1956 Man Who Knew Too Much. I'm like, why the fuck is this guy knocking on the door? It makes no sense, and we have to like come up with some reason, like because it's not
Yeah.
explained.
Right.
Uh, why is Louis Bernard and his friends in Switzerland. It's
Right.
it's not explained. We have to figure it out. And sometimes I pry around. And there's stuff that actually doesn't really make sense, and I have to come up with some like I don't know, use some duct tape and some spare parts to
Right.
like make up a plausible theory that fits in there.
Right. Tons of mental gymnastics. Yeah.
I found zero in this. I found zero in this. I think every single thing happens for a reason, and the reason is explicitly told to us as the audience.
Yeah, I actually found one that really bugged me, but
What's
then I
that?
kind of had it.
You want
Nikolai.
to? Okay.
I don't know if we want to save this for later or if it's a spoiler, but when he after the dressing room scene and he runs
Yes.
out. Well, the guy that's like the PA, the person running the showrunner, I guess, in the back is like, "Come on, Nikolai. Well, what the hell happened to Nikolai?" They obviously knew that they had the right count of guys. So where's Nikolai? But then he didn't have a doll like every other guy had a doll. So then I'm like, well, maybe they did have the right count. But then, like, where's this Nikolai guy? Why were they waiting, with the clapping before he came on? They were obviously waiting for him, So that was the only thing that I could find. But other than that, you're right. Like there was nothing like odd or weird
That
wasn't really
that
explained.
is only good for a paltry -1 director point.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it wasn't even that big of a deal.
Everything else, everyone is where there should be, that it makes sense, and they go to the places they would go given the situation, and the majority of the film happens in real time. There's only like 2 time gaps, and both of them make sense. There's a because let's see, I think the whole movie, well, except for the front part where he shows up in England.
Uh-huh.
Once the story gets going, there's one little gap when Boris gets called in, and then there's another little gap between when they get told to go to the hotel and when they arrive and they get told to go to the hotel at a certain time, and in the very next scene they're showing up at that certain time. Other than those 2 gaps, and even those like make perfect sense because it's supposed to take place over the course of 3.5 hours.
Yeah.
And so then those 2 gaps would explain the 2 missing blocks of time.
Right, because the movie's not 3 hours; it's only an hour and a half.
Right, but everything else is in real time, like even as you bounce back between different characters.
Yeah.
Which, of course, makes sense that this movie would go that way because it is a ticking clock plot.
Yeah, like it's a thriller. There's a time element, right?
Right. There's yeah, exactly. Something's going to happen at midnight.
Right.
And we know that pretty much like very early, and so like the whole time as the audience we know that like this has got to be resolved somehow, and we, as an audience, because it's a movie, we know it's not going to be resolved at 10:30. We know it's going to fucking be resolved at 11:59.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But yeah, other than that though, I mean, of course, you got to point out the whole movie is premised on a huge series of astonishing, unrealistic coincidences.
Yeah.
But if you take those coincidences for granted, then there's nothing to complain about, like mechanically, as far as like how the events play out. It's pretty good.
Yeah, I completely agree.
You can find on some sites or some reviews it's described as a parody of The Man Who Knew Too Much. That's not especially apt. There's nothing in common between the 2 stories.
I mean, other than like it's an aloof characters that kind of fall into the world, but yeah, there's not really like a direct tie.
Right. It's just got the clever title, it's a clever one. I like it. But rolling along with how like the movie gets started, our hero Wallace, it's his birthday, and he's shown up in England to surprise his brother on his own birthday, which is kind of weird, but whatever. We cut over and we get treated to a little kind of a cinematic explanation of the theater of life, which is important because this is the mechanic that we're going to use to have Wallace think that he's in basically a play,
It's like a live theater.
a role-playing, an evening of role-playing entertainment.
Yeah.
And that's the theater of life. They take your money and they slot you into like the starring role in a spy thriller, kind of like in Total Recall, except without the science fiction, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay, cool. So that gets shown to us so that we basically kind of understand like how it works. And then just as Wallace's brother, who I'm just going to call the brother, not try to remember his name, drops. Now, Wallace is disappointed that his brother can't hang out with him on his birthday, but his brother promises him that they'll smoke these 2 Cuban cigars before midnight. And that is like his promise that they will have done something to celebrate Wallace's birthday. That's important because now Wallace has a plan of something he needs to get done before midnight. The villains, which we will discuss, also have a plan of something that's going to go on at midnight, which is going to be, it's the major coincidence of the film that both the hero and the protagonists are on the same timetable.
Right. And the name of cigars was an interesting name as well.
Yes. Go ahead and tell us about that.
Well, they're called ambassadors. I guess is the brand name of the cigars. Which
sounds like a classy cigar to me.
Very, very classy. But we later end up the name of those cigars becomes important for this coincidence Todd is kind of set up for us.
Yeah, it's a nice little part of it. We'll mention it when it comes up.
Yeah.
Take us from the phone booth. This is when.
So this is when Wallace starts the theater of life. His brother drives him out, trying to get him out of the house because he's got to entertain some guests or whatever. And the phone booth rings. It starts at a phone booth, and the phone rings. But we're told the phone rings early, according to Wallace. So this is kind of set up our coincidental mishap. And the man on the other line calls him Spencer. So Wallace assumes the name Spencer and gets an address from Dagenhurst, who is our primary villain at this point. And we'll explain the plans later. He writes Spencer and the address that he's given on a card that's just like taped to the wall of the phone booth.
That's why it's important for the story that Bill Murray's character wrote the name Spencer and the address on the card, because otherwise our Spencer wouldn't have had any way of getting the address.
Right, and he wouldn't have gotten to Laurie's place.
And so why does he look at an address, that's just on a random card? Why does it mean something to him?
Because it's a Spencer.
Because it's got his fucking name on it. Right.
Yeah, or his code name or whatever.
I just wanted to plug that as clever.
Very clever writing. Yes,
it makes sense that Bill Murray would jot it down what he just got told.
Right,
and it's critical to put them both on the same path, to basically give them both the same address without them ever having met.
Right, exactly. And this is actually good. I mean, it was very clever writing to set up the story, but I'm actually going to mark this as my number 2 worst tradecraft. I mean, I know Bill Murray's not a spy master or anything, but if we're going to analyze any of our best and worst for this movie, I'm going to put this for my number 2. He should have not left the information just hanging out in the public, especially with the code name and the address. But I mean, we'll give him a pass because he's just kind of oblivious to what's going on. But leaving this information just hanging out was a bad move on his part.
Yeah, I generally don't like giving best and worst tradecrafts to people that aren't expected to know any better. Mm-hmm. But I guess this is kind of a shallow pool to fish from, so I'll let it slide.
Exactly. Yeah.
Wallace heads to the address where he meets Laurie, who's going to be our heroine. That's going to hang out with him for most of the movie. Her sugar daddy is the British defense minister, and he is part of the villain's plot. She has a bundle of letters that detail the evil plot, and she plans to use them as blackmail. The villains are onto her, though, and so Dagenhurst has sent Spencer to eliminate her and get the letters, but Wallace gets there first.
Right.
And that's how they meet. I'll give negative spy points for planning the plot out in correspondence.
Yeah, like mailing out letters. Yeah.
Yeah. It was a contender for one of my worst tradecrafts, but I found some better ones.
Yeah.
I gotta flag it, one of my best lines in the movie. What are you, CIA? Mafia? Both.
Yeah.
Both? I don't know. That's
CIA and Mafia.
I fucking love it. I want to see that movie.
Yeah, I want to see that movie too, yeah.
Wallace scares off the defense minister when he shows up. Laurie distracts Wallace and goes for the letters where she's hidden them in the kitchen, and she gets attacked there by the real Spencer, who's shown up. Wallace scares him off as well. Laurie and Wallace leave together. So now I think it's a good time to group up the villains, because we're about to meet them all. We got to meet one more or two more. But here we kind of, all the villains are introduced to us so that we know who they all are, because there's actually a bunch of them. And we get the information about like what the plot is, pretty much. The defense minister that Wallace just scared away from the house calls up Dagenhurst, who's our main villain, with the weird bad news. He doesn't know what just happened, just that Spencer just tried to shoot him.
Right, and he didn't know that they were calling a hit on Laurie.
He did not know that. That's right.
Right. Yeah.
Dagenhurst turns around and shares that with his Russian co-conspirator, who's Sergei. And Sergei, in turn, calls in Boris the Butcher from Deep Cover as kind of a cleanup guy.
Who was literally a butcher.
Yes, or at least that's his cover.
Yeah.
I believe at the end of the movie, he announces his plans to retire from killing people and become a butcher for real. So let's just make sure we know who all these people are. Again, Dagenhurst, that's our main villain, a British spy master of some sort. It's not exactly specified.
We're not even sure that he works for MI6 or anything. He's in charge of something.
Yeah.
It looks like, yeah.
Yeah, and he's unhappy about his budget, and he's unhappy that the Cold War is kind of winding down, and that there's not a whole bunch of stuff for him to do anymore. And apparently he's like the equipment in his spy master headquarters is a little outdated, and he wants new stuff. And when we see him in his spy master headquarters, it's an empty place. There's a bunch of desks. There's a bunch of phones. It looks like it, was once maybe a hub of, buzzing and activity and calls coming in and spies being sent on missions and information being shared and stuff. But right now it's just him and like his one little toady guy, his one little helper.
Yeah.
Embleton is the defense minister. He's not especially important, but he's there to be as a link for Wallace to have found Laurie and for them to be connected. Spencer is the guy that Dagenhurst sent in to clean Laurie. Sergei is a Russian spy master of some sort. Again, not specified, but he's working hand in hand with Dagenhurst, and they want to reignite the Cold War together. And finally, Boris is the guy that they send in to deal with Spencer, but now he's going to end up mistaking Wallace for Spencer. Because Wallace is acting like Spencer.
Right.
Something like that.
So what connects the two films is that we have foreign diplomats, mainly Russian ambassadors, in a different country, Great Britain. And in this room are a ton of world diplomats. And so the plan of the villains is to blow up this room, which I guess would cause distrust on who was behind the attack and probably reignite the Cold War.
So you're right. I didn't think about that. At core, both or all three movies involve a villainous plot to assassinate an ambassador who's visiting London.
Right.
Okay, good.
Yeah. And what they're going to do is put it in a Russian doll, because there's like some cultural performance at the beginning. So they have one of those Russian dolls that, the stacking dolls that they planted a bomb in, and they're going to put it like right in front of where the ambassadors are sitting.
Excellent.
And actually, this is where the cigars pay off. Because remember, those cigars were called ambassadors. Well, when Wallace, who's posing as Spencer, talks to our main villains, he not only mentions the time, which is about 11:30ish. So that's when we have to wrap up this story, and he also mentions we're gonna ignite those ambassadors.
We're gonna light those ambassadors up. He also could have said smoke some ambassadors.
Smoke some ambassadors, and they were like, my God, he knows everything, which kind of tells us that Dagenhurst didn't tell the real Spencer about the plot with Tom, why he's supposed to take out Laurie. Which we got to give them some spy points for not doing that.
Sure. Yeah, so that's why it's important. That's why the cigars, I thought, was a really genius bit, because that turns, in the villain's mind, along with some other things, but I think that's the important one. That turns him from just being a Spencer that has gone rogue on them for no reason into a Spencer that has turned on them, that knows about their plot and is going to foil it, which is a much more dangerous thing.
Much dangerous. And this is kind of where a lot of the drama really happens.
And even though that doesn't, because the movie, quirks its way into the way of their plans, that I gave them my number one best tradecraft for keeping Spencer in the dark.
That's a good one.
Right.
That was clever compartmentalizing information.
Gesundheit.
Yes.
Yes, it's important to compartmentalize information. I think in a lesser film, even like a light comedy like this, all the villains would know everything about the plot. But this guy Spencer, he's just a gun. He just needs to go in and kill a girl and get some letters. He doesn't know what needs to be in the letters.
No, not at all.
Right. But then that's why they're shocked and surprised to find out that Spencer does know about their plot. So it's important for the movie, and it also just makes sense. Number one best tradecraft.
At this point, this is before they realize that Wallace is not actually Spencer. They at this point they still think Wallace is Spencer, right?
Later they're gonna put it together, but they're gonna make the mistaken idea that Spencer is like an American CIA super agent that took Spencer out, assumed his role briefly, and is now coming at them.
Right.
Yeah. Again, the string of coincidences, it works. It really works so well, and it really works under very close scrutiny.
Absolutely.
Something I like about this movie. This movie is very
well written.
It's very it's clockwork. It's clockwork scripting.
Yeah, all the pieces fit. It's like all the threads connect. I think it was very, very well written. But before we move on to our next spot, I wanted to talk about my number 3 best tradecraft. Just out of left field, mainly because the moment has nothing to do with the main plot, and like Todd and I discussed, there wasn't a whole lot of fish in the pond trying to pull out tradecraft. But at one point, Wallace takes Laurie back to his brother's house, where his brother's entertaining some very important guests, and he runs in and acts a fool and mentions Lori. He kind of calls her the defense minister's call girl, and talks about how his brother paid for her, and he makes a fool of himself in front of these very, very, very important guests. When he leaves, the very important guest, very shocked and very concerned and very weirded out, ask, "What
Clutching
business
their
is your
pearls.
clutching their pearls?" You know, they're probably the worst thing ever for this dinner for his brother, who's trying to entertain these very important guests for like some big business deal or something. Now has his like goofy brother show up and embarrass him, and they ask, "So what business is your brother in?" And the brother's wife says he's in the movie business, and they go, "Ah, like that answered the question." Like they just like didn't even bat an eye. They're like, "Oh, okay, we get it," because these guests are like just Germans, like very, very how to like to how to be people or whatever, very wealthy, very connected, important customer or clients that he's trying to entertain. So they're all Europeans, and they just think like American movie star. Oh, that's why. He's just weird. He's just running around with prostitutes. That's the movie business. And so I put that down as my third best trade craft. That the wife thinking on her feet to kind of clean up this embarrassing situation. Oh, he's in the movie business, and it worked. Like, and I thought that was pretty funny.
Yeah, it's funny. We are really scraping for this one.
Yeah. Definitely scraping.
Let's hope. Let's see. Let's hope your number 2 and number 1 are a little meatier.
Yeah.
They did go back to the brother's house, I guess to lay low for a while. I'm not sure what the purpose of that was, because they're going to end up going right back to the defense minister's house after this. But it did give the villain some time to like kind of freak out about what's going on, and for Boris to come into play. Right, because that's another part of the movie that isn't in real time, because Boris needs time between being called out of deep cover to actually get apprised of what the mission is and to be set into motion.
And to get where he's going, you know, moving from A to B.
Yeah, so like for me, it doesn't make sense that Wallace and Laurie leave the house, the defense minister's house, for a while when they're just going to end up going right back. But it is necessary, again, for all the time frames of all the different actors in play to get their stuff done. So again, clockwork. Maybe not the tightest bit of clockwork in the script, but it was necessary for them to leave the house for a while and then come back.
Right.
When they do come back, now Laurie's here to get the letters, but she still doesn't trust Spencer, which is actually Wallace. So, you know, I mean, if she did trust him, for instance, she could have just grabbed the letters before they left the house the first time, right?
Well, other than they were up on the thing and the real Spencer was like attacking her and they had to get away from him.
Yeah, but they drove him off. She could have the kitchen right then just reached up and taken the letters.
Right.
But that would have been in front of Spencer, and she doesn't want Spencer to see that she has the letters. When I say Spencer, I mean she thinks it's Spencer. She doesn't know who attacked her. That was really Spencer. Now it's getting really confusing.
Yeah.
The point is, she doesn't trust the man who she's with, who she believes to be Spencer. So instead of just going into the house, taking the letters, she tries to divert him to go upstairs. I think she says, like, why don't you, I think she tells him where the letters are upstairs.
And I go look for them, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, you go get the letters from my room, and I will stay here and keep guard. And her little plan is, as soon as he goes upstairs, she'll just grab the letters and probably book it.
Right.
So I'm giving her +2, at least half-ass spy points for this little ruse.
Right.
He doesn't go for it because, and again, Bill Murray's character Wallace he's just acting, but even just in his acting role, he says some funny thing about like, well, the last time that I left you alone, like bad stuff happened, so you come with me.
Yeah.
Apparently, they're not the only people who went to the house. Boris and the real Spencer
returned to the house.
From here on out, every time I mean the real Spencer, I'm going to call him the real Spencer. just to make sure it's absolutely clear. But apparently both Boris and the real Spencer went back to the house to look for the letters. Spencer found the letters. We don't know this yet. This is what we're going to find out. Spencer found the letters. Boris killed Spencer, but didn't find the letters on Spencer's person.
Well, he had to take off because they had just walked in the house and Boris came privy to it, so he had to take off and didn't have time to find them.
You could see that he was like cutting open pillows. He was tossing the place looking for the letters. But when Wallace and Laurie entered the house, he got spooked and ran off.
Right.
Dagenhurst makes contact with Wallace by what Dagenhurst calls Spencer's little cigarette phone radio that he has.
Uh-huh.
And Wallace happens to be in the room when this is going on, and so he picks it up and
it's like a radio that's hidden in a cigarette case.
Yeah.
Like two-way radio. I think they call it a communicator at some point.
I think that might have been a Star Trek joke. But so Wallace picks up the cigarette radio when it rings and talks to Dagenhurst. Presumably he recognizes this as the name from what he thinks is the Theater of Life that gave him the address in the first place, because this is the same voice talking to him that was the one that gave him the name Spencer in the phone booth earlier.
That's right. And then they tell him, well, I mean, they used a bunch of weird spy jargon, like in talking about, they tell him that he needs to get rid of the girl. So to basically...
Which is what his job was to do, right?
Yeah, originally.
Well, to them, it's still the job.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Right. So they want to know, like, have you done it yet? Have you done the job yet? And, which is the job is to kill the girl and eliminate any evidence, like get rid of the body. Basically, kill the girl, get rid of the body. But they never say kill the girl or get rid of the body. Instead, they use, like you say, some spy jargon. They use a whole, like, taking a shit and flushing it, basically.
Yeah.
Metaphor. So obviously that kind of confuses our Bill Murray character.
Oh, because Laurie actually went to the loo, quote unquote, and they're using a bunch of bathroom jargon, and she got away from him.
And she happens to be in the bathroom while they're using this spy jargon about killing her.
Right.
So yeah, he thinks that's what they're talking about. She's overhearing it. She knows what they are actually talking about. But my number 2 best tradecraft, not too tough a one for me, but just the fact that Dagenhurst and his little assistant guy are using the jargon, because here they're on a radio transmission, and radio transmissions are pretty easy to listen in on.
Right.
It's different. I mean, a phone is obviously not secure, but it's much more secure than the radio.
Right.
So yeah, number 2 best tradecraft. Not talking about killing, not specifically saying, did you kill the girl?
Right.
And did you kill the body?
And he actually takes a shot at her and misses from 3 feet away. He's unaware that it's a real gun, and she freaks out because she almost got shot.
Why does he take a shot at her?
Well, because he has a gun, and they just told him that he has to kill her.
So he thinks it's part of the act.
Yeah, he thinks it's part of the act, and basically he goes, okay, well, maybe I got to shoot her. But they make some discussion, and he misses, and she kind of woos him a little bit, and they move on to kind of work together. But right after she walks out, he looks down the barrel of the gun. And I'm going to make that my number 3 worst tradecraft. I mean, even though we know that Wallace is kind of, I guess, oblivious to what's really going on. If he had shot that gun before and shot the defense minister's phone, and it's obviously loud. So even if it had blanks or something, I wouldn't be pointing that at my face. So I don't know. I'm just gonna call looking down a barrel bad firearm safety my number 3 worst tradecraft.
I'm gonna give some negative spy points to the fact that Dagenhurst called Sergey first when they got the call from what was his name, Edgerton, Embleton, the defense minister, that Spencer tried to kill him. What they did was they called Sergey in Russia. Or maybe he's not in Russia. I guess he's not in Russia at this point. No, he's not. He's in London, because otherwise he wouldn't have time to get from Russia to England to be part of the thing. Yeah, so he's in cover. Actually, it's a shipping company or something when they call him. Is what his cover is in London. The thing I wanted to say though, like they call Sergey, and Sergey calls in Boris, and they waited this long. You know, you can look at the clock and how much time has gone on, including you had all that time for Boris to come out of deep cover and get put into place, and for them to go back to the brother's house and wait a while and then come back to this house. And it's only just now that they're calling Spencer. This is what they should have done. I think I screwed up. This should have been on my number high worst tradecrafts.
Yeah.
Because they had access to his cigarette radio the whole time. They should have called him first thing right after Embleton called them.
Right.
Retroactively, I'm calling this one of my worst tradecrafts. I'll trade it out for one of the other ones.
Sounds like a plan. That was pretty silly.
Let's see. Have I listed a worst yet? I don't think I have.
Yeah.
Yeah, my worsts haven't come up, but this one's gonna replace one of those 3, unless those 3 are actually like really good. I forget. We're gonna find out.
Well, anyway, Lori finds that the letters are missing downstairs, and Wallace actually finds them behind Spencer's body
while he's still upstairs. Yeah.
And so it's better. It's really important that he ends up finding the letters and not her, because now he has some leverage,
right,
against her, right? And then two armed quote unquote plumbers. So I guess these are guys that like the special assault team or whatever, but they're posing as plumbers, show up with guns drawn, and they're sent by Dagenhurst to kind of like figure out what's going on and clean up this mess. But basically they report to Dagenhurst later that Spencer is dead.
Yeah, that seems to be their only purpose in this movie.
Yeah.
Lori tries to take off from the house on her own, but Wallace catches up with her, gets in the car, shows her.
She tried to drive off, and he screams as she's driving off, "I have the letters!" And she ends up backing up.
Right.
Yeah.
So or at least he's got the letters, like you say, like, you know, leverage. Yeah. And they're taking off. I'm not sure exactly where they're meant to be going right now, but yeah, where are they supposed to be going right now?
I'm not sure. Maybe just away. I can't really think. Yeah, but this is what sets up a car chase. So I guess they needed to go somewhere. Then we're not told
for a car chase to happen.
Yeah, because every spy movie needs a car chase.
Of course, yeah, and we've already had some, like, you know, shooting and some skullduggery and some sort of spy-y stuff. But the car chase scene actually does serve a few purposes in the story. I think one of the good ones to mention is it's a challenge and a hardship for Laurie and Wallace to overcome together. You know, like, I mean, right now he thinks, you know, in the part of the story that he doesn't know how the story's supposed to go. He's just kind of following it through. It looks like he's supposed to hang out with her. So that's what he's doing. What she's doing, at least at the beginning of the car chase, is just like keeping a hold of him in the hopes of getting the letters away from him. I'm going to
Right.
talk about that more at the end of the car chase. But anyways, part of the car chase, like it's important in movies for because at the end, they're going to get together and they're going to fall in love, which is great. But at this point, at the beginning of the car chase, they're not in love with each other.
No.
That hasn't even started.
No, yeah, the interest hasn't really peaked. I mean, she's flirted with him, but it was more of a self-preservation thing than it was an actual interest.
100%. And but a car chase, you're going to see that afterwards they start warming up to each other. And so I like the fact, you have the car chase. I think it's partly a mechanism of something for them to go through together. In fact, it's pretty good and extensive, and I think works well. It also gives Boris, who gives pursuit after them with his two bozos, it's going to give him opportunity to accidentally mistake Wallace for an American super spy.
I think he calls him American Superman.
I'm a Yankee Doodle Dandy.
Yes, literally Superman. And that combined with the plumber's report to Dagenhurst of Spencer's death combines to motivate Dagenhurst to think that now they're dealing with someone very, very dangerous. It was probably during the cigarette radio call that Spencer literally mentioned the ambassadors and the plot. So now they know this guy is not Spencer. They know that whoever it is knows about the plot, and they're getting these frantic reports from Boris that this is American Superman.
Yeah.
Why you not tell me? You tell me nothing about CIA super spy. All of this, by the time we're done with the car chase, is going to motivate them to think that what their play is they're going to just have to lure in the heroes with the promise of £3 million, which is, by the way, all they've got. It's all that's left in their slush fund, which again goes to
they had to combine. They had to combine with Sergei and Dagenhurst. They had 1.5 each, and they offered $3 million.
And that was literally like what was left in their funding, which again, it's a tiny thing, but it goes back to the point that like I was saying before, that Dagenhurst's primary motivation seems to be that his department is no longer needed, and so it's no longer being funded properly, and he just wants more funding. He wants his spy agency back.
Which is another callback to when we did Most Wanted Man, where it's just you have these organizations just competing for funding, and they'll do anything to get their funding, pretty much. So now he's working with the Russians to reignite the Cold War so he can get funding for his department. Yeah.
But of course, they, we know that we are shown that the villains aren't planning to actually hand over the £3 million. It's going to be a lure to get them into place so that they can take them out.
Right.
So I don't need to talk about the car chase a lot in terms of mechanics. I mean, it's kind of fun. It's a car chase. It's not an especially thrilling car chase, even for 1997 standards. But rather just to talk about like what the car chase scene accomplishes in the story. But I'm here to give my number 3 worst tradecraft. Actually, that's what I said was what I was going to put forth as my number 3 worst, which was Boris overestimating Wallace just based on him missing one shot.
Yeah.
Like he's following them in a van, he's lining up, he's about to take the shot, and then Laurie suddenly realizes that Wallace is driving on the wrong side of the road because Britain.
Right.
And so they swerve over to the right side of the road just as they miss some oncoming traffic. And Boris, for some reason, that is all he needs to decide that this is, American CIA Superman.
A Yankee Doodle do or die.
That's literally all it was. So I
Yeah.
think that was a solid number 3 worst tradecraft, but since I need to slot something better in, I need to trade something out for my stupid thing about them like waiting like an hour to like
Yeah.
call Spencer,
Yeah.
call him and ask him what's going on.
Right.
So not calling Spencer is my number 3. Boris overestimating Wallace just based on that one missed shot. I'll definitely call it minus spy points. I'll call it a solid minus 20. I mean, that's kind of goofy.
Yeah. 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 It's pretty.
There's some good lines here, though, because now Sergei and Dagenhurst are screaming at each other over the phone about this new information that there's an American super spy in play. A really good line here, one of the best in the movie, I think, is, if we cannot trust each other, I forget who gives it. I think it's
I think it was
Sergei.
Sergey.
Yeah.
I think
If we
Sergey.
cannot trust each other, how can we bring Cold War back together?
That was a good line.
It
That was
is a good line. I think I could have wrote it better. I think it could have been polished. I think something like, how can we have Cold War if we cannot trust each other? It's slightly better. It's slightly better, but it's a good one. It's a
But
good
it
one.
did the job, and it was very clever, very very clever writing.
The car chase ends with them getting pulled over by the cops, and it looks like they're gonna get arrested, but Dagenhurst again makes contact again now because he thinks that he's dealing with an American super spy, and he's gonna make his play to use the 3 million pounds as bait to get them into a position where they can take care of them. Gets them off the hook with the police. And it has one of my other favorite lines in the movie. It's kind of subtle, but I laugh harder every time I hear it, which is where one of the first things that Wallace says to Dagenhurst on the little cigarette radio phone is, "May I step out of character for just one moment?" And Dagenhurst just says, "I wish you would." Trust me,
British tone too. He was like, "I'd rather wish you would."
If you haven't seen the movie, believe me, it's 50 times funnier than what I'm describing.
Yeah, it was really funny.
So it's throughout this part of the film, though, back to our Wallace and Laurie thing and why the car chase, I think, is important. Before the car chase, he is talking about changing the script. Could we change the script? Could we do it a different way? He's talking about wanting to be a good guy. And he talks about how we're all just acting, she asks him, are you acting when you say these things about like wanting to change the script, which she thinks is like change the script, like get out of their roles that they've been assigned to in life. He's talking about getting outside of their roles that's been assigned to by the script of the theater of life.
Right.
And he says, hey, we're all just acting, aren't we? In the theater of life. And she thinks that's so profound.
Yeah, that was actually pretty funny.
She misconstrues it as romantic metaphor, and she starts to maybe kind of see him in a different light. And then they have the car chase that they go through together, and they have to work together to get through it. And then they get arrested by the cops, and they have to navigate that part of it together. And then it's after this. So now, again, they've been offered the 3 million pounds. She's excited by that. They've got instructions to meet the villains at the embassy to get the 3 million pounds. And it's when they arrive at the embassy, and I'm calling this the end of the chase scene, the car chase scene, where they have another talk in the car. This is just as Wallace, is getting out of the car to go into the embassy to do the negotiations, to hand over the letters, to get the 3 million pounds. And he gives her some more talk about how he'd like to see their story continue.
Why do we have to be the Bonnie and Clyde? Can't we do the getaway together? And
Which
he's talking about changing the story, and she's hearing it as kind of like a romantic courting for her, I guess.
Sure. And I totally get the Bonnie and Clyde reference. And I assume the getaway, I don't know the movie The Getaway, do you?
No.
Okay. But, I mean, it's pretty clear that it's meant to be a movie where the guy and the girl get away together alive with the money, as opposed to Bonnie and Clyde, where they die at the end.
With the money.
With the money. And the final little bit of that, because she's looking at him again in a totally new light, but she's still not entirely, wanting to believe that this is true. She's starting to warm up to him. She's starting to moisten. But she says again, like, or this is her time to ask him, are you or you're just acting, or are you acting? And he just like drops everything and he just says, you know what? To be honest, I can't act. The line delivery here is super good. It's really good. You can see he's not just dropped the face, because remember, he's in a role, right? Where he's pretending to be, I guess he still thinks he's Spencer at this point. In responding to her with this line about, I can't act, he's actually really bearing several layers of his soul. He's dropping the face of the character that he's playing, but he's also dropping the face of the pretend actor that he's trying to be.
Right.
He's even kind of dropping the facade of the Wallace Ritchie, the guy that as a kid dreamed of being an actor and then found out that he was shitty at it and had to settle for a sad dead-end career at Blockbuster in Des Moines, Iowa.
Yeah.
In a way like that, it doesn't get really like hammered in by this movie, but if you're paying really close attention to the little bits, him not being able to act, I'm going to come back to this too. Him not being able to act, to do the thing that he always wanted to do, is like his core protagonist flaw, thing that he needs to overcome in order to achieve I forget what the word is. Maura, can you help us out with this?
In a dramatic structure, the protagonist's necessary change of internal perspective required for them to advance from Act 2 to Act 3 is called the epiphany.
Yeah, that's the one. That's the thing that is the word for when the hero has surpassed themselves by overcoming their flaw. Anyways, I love the way Bill Murray gave this line. Bill Murray to me is an actor that, especially up until this point, because remember, we haven't yet seen the movies where we get a glimpse of Bill Murray's actual potential dramatic acting chops.
Yeah, we don't really get much from him.
He's been a goofball throughout his entire career up until now. And also, he's always mugging for the camera. He's always mugging for the camera. All of Bill Murray's lines, even his best lines, they're lines. They're quotable lines. And when he delivers them in a way that he knows that they're quotable lines.
I knew I should have taken that left turn at Albuquerque.
Right.
he's kind of, even when Bill Murray isn't talking to the audience, he's very aware that the camera is there in a kind of a funny way. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, absolutely.
He's almost constantly winking at the audience in all of his roles. Yeah. Especially all of his roles up until now. It's later after this movie that we get things like Lost in Translation and his work that he does with Wes Anderson and stuff. Even though he still does some comedy. I mean, he still ends up being the voice of Garfield and doing some funny stuff like that. But this little line here, I can't act, the way he gives it is just perfect. And I think it was just a small hint. And I wonder, and I'll never get the answer to this, but I'll always wonder every time I watch this scene whether or not this was an acting decision that Bill Murray made himself to deliver the line in the way he does, or whether or not it was something the director had to like tease out of him and keep saying like, no, Bill, you can't do this one with a wink at the audience.
Enoch, you stinker.
Yeah, exactly.
Like
You
there's
have to really say this.
so many ways you could deliver this line.
Yeah.
You know what? You know what? To be honest, I can't act.
Right.
There's a lot of ways you could do it, like smooth. You could do it like, I think this is one, like I said before, like I think Chevy Chase, I think might have been, to me, funnier in this movie than Bill Murray. This is one that I don't think Chevy Chase could have landed anywhere.
No, definitely not.
He would have been incapable of giving this line this well.
Yeah.
So yeah, sorry, I had to spend some time with that one.
No problem. I think you had a really good point. That was a really good line. You know.
All right. But we got some more movie we got to talk about, right?
Yeah, we got quite a bit. All right, so Wallace walks in to make the trade-off for the money, but
to the embassy.
To the embassy, right? And we haven't actually talked about the brother at all, mainly because the brother doesn't really have much impact on the story, other than like maybe some comedy. And but how he gets involved is when Boris picks. And I guess his like his security or his goons or whatever, you know, they pick up Wallace, and basically this story of this. Well, we didn't bring this up earlier. That's right. So the real Spencer, when he got the phone call from the Theater of Life, you know, how Wallace and the real Spencer kind of swapped and received each other's phone calls that were meant for them. He actually, the real Wallace got involved in the Theater of Life and shot one of the actors.
Sorry, you meant the real Spencer.
The real Spencer. The real Spencer got involved in the Theater of Life and goes over and shoots one of the actors.
I'm giving minus massive spy points for the theater people and the police not thinking to ring up the client immediately after the shooting. Like the shooting that you talked about, right?
Right.
That was like a couple hours ago in the timeline of the movie at this point.
Right.
It should have been the first thing they did, right?
What, call the brother?
Yeah. Like,
well, they might not have had his phone number. He might have just like paid for it and then, well, I mean, they should have, yeah, they probably would have had his phone number.
I would think so.
Yeah. No, you're right. That's pretty dumb. Why didn't they just call him ahead of time?
I realize now that actually creates a theme in almost all of my bad tradecraft in this movie is just basically people not placing calls when they should,
right,
by common logic,
right.
Instead waiting to place those calls when it is suitable to the comedy of the movie.
Yeah.
Anyways, number 2 worst. They should have called the person as soon as someone showed up and killed one of their actors. I think the first person they should have called is the person that paid for the experience. Yeah. I'm also like, I don't know. Am I gonna give spy points? I'm on the fence on this. For when Boris and his goons grab Wallace out of the lobby, they inject him in the arm. Hey, bro, you just stabbed with your pen.
Yeah. That's a great line.
And then they slap some leg straps on either side of him so that
let's kind of explain this a little bit, because basically the one comes up to his side, stabs him with the pen, which is a sedative, and as the sedative's kind of kicking in, 2 men stand next to him and then strap, like the one man on his right straps his left leg to Wallace's right leg, and the man on his left straps his right leg to Wallace's left leg. So as the sedative's kicking in, they're able to hold him up and they kind of like walk him through the lobby.
They can trunk walk him.
Yeah. So it looks awkward. Like, it's definitely not subtle. It's really subtle. But yeah, it's kind of a cute idea though. Like how they handled with the fact that they're in a public place and this guy's about to pass out, so they can make it look like they're kind of drunk carrying him. So I think that was kind of cute. Yeah. But I'm gonna give this my number one best trade craft, or just the pens in general. I like how the pens just look like pens and they inject, because like we've said over and over, it was really tough to try and find.
That's pretty cool. No, pens are cool, and we get a good one too when like later in the movie, like the same guy, I guess he's
Yeah,
like the pen injector guy. He like they're supposed to they give him a truth serum again with a pen injector,
he
and
has
then
several
later,
pens, and each pen has its own thing in it. Right?
right, yeah, and then they're supposed to give him the antidote, and he like stabs him with the antidote, and then he says, "Oh, wait, no, that was actually my pen."
Yeah, like it was a real pen. So he had to go and grab the pen that had the antidote. That was some good comedy. But I thought
It's
using
bad tradecraft. It's bad, or it's at least negative spy points. Don't keep your pen with your set of fake spy
syringe
tool
pens. Yeah,
injector
yeah,
pens. Don't mix them up.
yeah. Um, but I just
So
thought it was kind of
you're,
cool.
you're going number one best tradecraft on that one, dude. I was seriously on the fence if I even wanted to give spy points. It's a little goofy. It's a little goofy. I guess it would
It's
work.
super goofy.
It
It
would
was just
work.
with
It would
scraping
work
so
like out
much.
on a street or something.
Yeah.
If you're like trying to pull this play out with like people that are observing you from like a block away, but like people in the same room, this is not gonna fly.
No, not at all. Not at all. But I mean, like they are in a hotel lobby, right? Aren't they at like a hotel? Yeah, they're at like the Grand Plaza Hotel or something.
A hotel or an embassy, I'm not sure. I think it might supposed it might it doesn't matter. It's a grand place.
Yeah, I mean, so they could have been like helping a drunk friend up the elevator or whatever. But I'm just giving. I mean, like we were scraping so much for tradecraft in this movie. That's why I gave it my number one, because the way that they quickly came in to his side, like snuck up on him, shot him with the pen, and then both like instinctively with great like synchronization, like strapped their legs to him so that they could like drunk walk him to the elevator to get him into a room. So that's why I think it was just so well orchestrated, and like the sneak up was like done, and just like the cool gadget pen of like a syringe. So we didn't have a lot to work with, so that's why it's getting my number one.
All right.
Yeah,
We get him up into the hotel room. Uh, Basically, all of the villains show up here. I think Embleton, Dagenhurst Flunky, Dagenhurst's two plumbers show up here. We've
yeah,
got Boris and his two goons.
yeah,
We've even got Sergey showing up.
yeah.
Um, I love this line when the knock at the door, and who is it? Oh, it's the plumbers. And like one of his goons just immediately like bristles, and he's like, "Those sons of bitches blew up my Nikita in '79." Boris is like, "Forget about your dog. He's in better place."
Yeah, and then I think Boris wanted to kill Wallace, and he was gonna get messy, and the goons were like, "This is a really good, like Boris, please not like Helsinki. It's fun for you, but we have to clean up after."
He's like,
Yeah,
they're both like, Boris, please,
yeah,
please, come
yeah.
on, man, it's fun for you.
That was cute.
I like them. They are really funny, the two goons.
Yeah,
They don't get a whole lot of screen time, but they're pretty funny.
yeah. By the way, the what
I
was that
like the
scene
way
where they
they
played the game?
they come across as real working stiffs,
Yeah,
like 9 to 5ers
yeah, yeah,
that are just kind of always like, they don't express this in the movie, but they kind of express it just in their behavior, that they're kind of like, "Ugh, we got to do this now. We got to do this now." But they seem like kind of tired. They don't seem excited to be spies.
no, no, yeah,
They're not like crisp, like young, super sharp professionals like Bachman's team in A Most Wanted Man.
yeah, right.
They're just guys that are just drawing a check.
Well, yeah, all they're just the muscle for the most part. They're kind of just go like we've been calling them. They're just goons, you know.
Yeah, I know, but some kind of goons you have in movies, they're like, the guys that look like they enjoy beating people up. These guys
Yeah.
don't look like they enjoy any part of
No,
their job.
no, they're like there to like clock in and clock out.
They're definitely there to clock in and clock out. And
Yeah,
they do it in a just a nice kind of frumpy comedic way that really appeals to me. I like these guys.
yeah, they're pretty fun.
They're my favorite characters in the movie.
You know what? One of my favorite scenes dealing with the goons actually is like when they had to pretty much babysit a tied up Wallace and Lori when Boris and everybody leave. The main villains go to the dining hall to get ready for the big explosion, and then Boris is out doing. I think he had to go get the doctor or something, and so they're just sitting there waiting, and to bide their time, they. Todd, you're right. They obviously just want to show up to clock in and clock out. Because, like, while they're waiting, they obviously have a set of kerplunk that I guess they bring with them everywhere to kill time.
Yeah.
So they're just sitting there playing kerplunk while they're waiting for everybody
What's
to
kerplunk? What's kerplunk? I looked this up. It's not literally kerplunk. It's something like it. But describe what we're looking at here.
Yeah, it's like a kind of plastic tube, and at the top of the tube, there's like kind of like a holes on the side, and you put all these sticks in so that you could put marbles on top of the sticks, and you put a lot of sticks. And I guess the game is whoever can pull the most sticks out without dropping all the marbles, I guess, and whoever pulls the last stick out, I guess, loses. Or
I'm not exactly sure how it works, but this is definitely like a fun Hasbro like family game from the 90s. This is not what like hardened killers play.
no. Yeah, this is something that like guys are just trying to kill their time. Like if you're at work and you have some downtime, you just kind of like goof all around.
This is a kids family. This is like a family night game. Like,
Yeah.
Kids, hey, oh, you want to play video games? Well, no, you can't, because we're gonna have some family time. We're gonna play Kerplunk.
Yeah.
Like, there's like virtually no actual like strategy to the game.
Right.
It's just a garbage family game.
Yeah. But
I
just thought it was one of my favorite scenes. It was kind of cute.
Dude, they're playing it with a chess clock.
Yeah, oh no, that was even the best part.
That was the best part.
Yeah. No, not only do they carry this game around with them for their downtime at the job, but they have like a chess clock to force them to make it extra competitive. Like they're playing tournament Kerplunk or something.
They're playing one of the stupidest games ever invented on the planet as if like it's a really serious game. It's hilarious.
Like tabs on who wins and loses back and forth.
You ever played Connect 4, Dave?
Absolutely.
Oh, really? Would you consider yourself a Connect 4 master?
I'm not a master, but I'm okay.
I will tell you this. I've said this before, I'll say it again. There are levels of the game of Connect 4 that only people who have done time will ever fucking truly understand. When I was in juvenile hall for like 5 days, I sat down, like some guys were playing Connect 4. I was like, I'm bored. I'll go join. I got in there and I just like immediately like just destroyed. And then somebody noticed that I was kicking ass at Connect 4 and came over and started playing against me, and he just fucking started whooping my ass at the game.
Oh, wow.
And then I had to like up my shit and start rethinking like how the game was played and start coming up with counter strategies against him. And like word started getting around that like, oh, like some serious Connect 4 players are at the table, and got down to like, I don't know, 5 of us that were like just the top of the top going at it. And like we really, really stretched. I mean, it was only 5 days in juvie, but we got heavily into it. And if we had had a chess clock available to us, we would have been using it.
That's
True story. True Todd story there.
yeah.
It's also fun, like, and it's kind of like a callback to a couple of movies we've seen before, and we might see again. Let's keep an eye out for this when you're watching a hostage, and that's your job. You pull out a game to play to pass the time. In A Man Who Knew Too Much, 1956 version, Coke bottle glasses lady was playing chess with Hank while
That's
she
right.
was watching him. Yep. And in
That's another callback to Man Who Knew Too Much.
In A Most Wanted Man, Annabelle's playing chess with Karpov.
Oh, right. Well, he's in hiding. Wow.
So these two guys should be playing chess. The goons should be playing chess.
With a chess clock.
Right.
Wow. I totally forgot about that. Yeah.
Levels of the game.
But this, but now we have a Wallace and a Laurie that are tied up, and so we got to kind of get him out of this situation.
Right, because at some point they did bring Laurie in off the street.
Right, and so he kind of klutzes his way out in the typical fashion that the movie set up, where he's just kind of like obliviously like survived.
A real live nephew of my Uncle Sam, born on the 4th of July.
He kind of knocks them out with his chair. There's a whole thing, but like he gets out of it, and basically, isn't this where like Laurie, they start talking to get away, and they get through the window, and like Wallace makes a point about the money because he's still in character, and she's trying to have a moment with him. She mistakes his interest in the money with thinking that he's not interested in her romantically and leaves type of thing.
Right. He's only asking, like, what about the money? Because, like, I thought the money was, like, part of
the story. And we got to get to the next
we're
stage
supposed to do.
We got to get to the next step, right? Where's the money?
Yeah, he's still trying to basically, like, follow the script. And she mistakes that for thinking that he's really just in it for the money, and that all that stuff before that he was saying to her doesn't mean anything. And so she takes off. Yeah. Got to have a little dramatic tension in the love interest plot here.
Yeah,
it's small, but it's there.
Yeah. But he goes out the window. After she gets out, he goes out himself to try and chase after her, and he's stuck out there. There's like a moment with the brother, which is ended quickly, and then the two goons spot him outside and start shooting at him from the sidewalk, and.
Oh, right. They try to get him off. They try to get him out from grabbing him from a window, but that fails. So, yeah, they go down to the street and start taking shots at him. And here's my number 3 best tradecraft. Even though it's a small thing, I don't think it works well in real life, but I thought it was kind of clever. They're standing next to each other, and one of the guys, like, opens up a newspaper as if he's reading it, so his friend can shoot through the newspaper. And so that people on the street don't get freaked out by seeing someone shooting at someone on a busy London street.
Yeah.
It's tightly executed. I'm not sure it's entirely practical in real life, but hey, number 3 best. But despite being some kind of attempt at taking him out, off of the ledge, they fail, and he makes his way back into a window, and he makes good his escape, at least at this part, and gets back into the hotel.
Yeah, he just kind of gives the slip away, and he ends up ducking into a dressing room. So at this treaty signing event, there's going to be like cultural demonstrations and performances. So there's kind of like a dressing room area where a bunch of performers are, and he kind of ducks into it. And puts on, one of those big fluffy Russian hats.
Because at this point, he's being pursued by Boris.
Yeah, Boris spotted him, and so there's kind of the chase is on a little bit, and so he ducks into the dressing room and puts on the hat to kind of blend in with all these performers. Probably 80 people in this dressing room getting ready to perform, and I'm actually going to mark this my number 2 best tradecraft. especially coming from Wallace, who's like, unbeknownst to him, he's in a real spy chase. And what he does is he ducks into the dressing room and finds some clothing really, really quickly. He's wearing like a fur Russian hat, holding like a random bagpipe. Sits
One of
down.
those big fucking things.
Yeah, the giant ones. Like when you think like Russian furry hat from like back in the day, like you know what?
Yeah, we're not talking about like a little cap. You're talking about like one of those like almost like Mongolian kind of like big, huge ring of fur around the crown of your head.
So he puts one of those on, sits in front of one of those lighted mirrors, and just grabs some bagpipes and is sitting there watching Boris from the mirror, and blends in with the crowd completely. And Boris, just unbeknownst to him, he's given the shake.
Yep, that's the term.
Yeah, he's given the shake on Boris, and I guess quote unquote gets away from the chase. So I'm putting that as my number 2 best trade craft. And but after this, I guess there's like a PA right walking around in charge of the actors, and he starts yelling at him like, "Hey, Nikolai," which I think I brought up earlier. Like, what the hell happened to Nikolai? You know, like I don't think that was really like discussed. But he's like, "Yo, you got to get up. You got to get and perform. Hey, get up. It's time to go." And so Bill Murray's kind of forced into the situation where he has to act and perform.
Remember, like Wallace wanted to act as a kid, right?
Right.
We established that. It's not something the movie like puts right in your face, but it is there.
Right.
And he suffered a traumatic incident of stage fright. Like the thing that keyed me in on this is like, remember like the PA that you just mentioned, he says like, because now he's in costume. He got in costume just to shake Boris, but now this is having some unintended consequences where the PA mistakes him as an actor and says like, it's time to go, you gotta get up on stage. And he specifically says like, wait a second, like my brother said I wouldn't have to. He said because when the brother was selling him on this whole theater of life thing in the first place, he was hesitant because he didn't want to have to perform in front of people. But his brother said like, no, it's not like that. It's not like that. It's a totally different thing. But now it's turning into the thing that is like Wallace's childhood trauma and like the core of his character. So I'm guessing it was probably better done in the book, but at least there's elements of it here that are still there if you look for them. And the real protagonist's journey in this, like his flaw is that he's not confident in himself enough to do what he dreams of doing in front of other people. Would you say that's accurate?
Yeah, he's like kind of thrown into the deep end.
So here it is again, like his the thing that he actually needs to do in order to like solve this movie and get to his exegesis or whatever the fuck it is to ultimately to perform on stage in front of people. Yeah. The thing that like derailed his life in the first place is now he's kind of like, I don't know, like the whole theater of life experience that he's had up until now has kind of like charged him up a little bit.
Yeah, it's been fun for him. And if you notice throughout the movie, his dialogue gets better. He starts like, coming into the character slowly but surely.
Like in the initial scenes, like I think like one of his early scenes or early parts that he thinks is a scene is where he gets mugged.
Yeah.
And he's really hesitant, and he keeps like stopping and like making apologies.
Does like multiple takes.
Right? Yeah.
They're actual real muggers.
Okay, no, that was bad. I'm so sorry. Let me try it again. And then he'll try it a different way or whatever. But there's less and less of that as he goes along. Like he's really starting to like find his stride as an actor. He's becoming the actor that he was always internally meant to be along this journey through the movie. I am not saying this is a deep movie, but if you're looking for depth, this is where it is. This, yeah, this is really his journey. And then the actual finale involves him having to face the thing that he didn't ever want to do in his life. But at this point, he's gotten whipped up and he's kind of having fun with it.
Yeah.
And so he like summons up like he doesn't have like a moment where he like stops and says like, okay, Wallace, this is the time. This is the time. He just like kind of says like, oh, my brother said I didn't have to do this, but the guy says, no, you got to do it. And he's like, all right, well, and he goes out there and he performs terrifically. The crowd loves him. The crowd loves him.
Yeah.
And
there was actually a cute thing where he takes the Russian doll from in front of the ambassadors, which is the bomb, because he didn't have a Russian doll. And
everyone else has got
like
a doll.
Joke.
All the other dancers. It's a dance scene that he's involved in, right?
Yeah, some like traditional Russian dance performance of like
right.
coming of age or something.
And at some point, like all the dancers like bring out a doll, and he doesn't have one.
Right. So he takes the one that's in front of the
plant was.
Yeah.
So again, you said like so he grabs a doll. He grabs the only free doll that he sees, which happens to be the one that has the bomb in it that was placed on the table in front of the ambassadors. He just says like, "Oh, can I just borrow this?" Which of course freaks the villains out.
Yeah, they're watching him play with the bomb, and he's like juggling it around, throwing it all over the place. I think he does a football throw at one time. That was pretty funny. Yeah, but so the pretty much the villains are on edge at this point because the clock is ticking. We're almost getting there, and in the dance, and I think what was it? Boris finally catches up and is gonna take a shot at him with like a syringe.
He's gonna shoot him with a dart with a little hand crossbow, which is nice spy points because it's something that won't make noise.
Yeah, right. And well, during the dance, Bill Murray is like twisting the top of the doll, which is how you arm or disarm the bomb. And because the clock's ticking and it's getting so close as he's twisting, I think, Laurie spots Boris and steps up and knocks him over, and then the dart hits the Russian doll. And I think the clock stops, of course, as every movie at like 1 second.
2 seconds in this case.
2 seconds. So I guess
I wasn't clear, and I don't think I'll ever be clear on whether or not we're meant to think that the dart stopped the bomb.
No, you had to twist the top to arm it.
Okay, so he just accidentally, like by twisting it back and forth, like he accidentally like stopped it at 2 seconds. But before maybe he could accidentally twist it again.
Yeah.
It's important that Boris takes a shot at him, but Laurie bumps into Boris so that the dart hits the doll instead of him, which of course, like all the villains, again misinterpret as being like, oh my God, this guy's amazing.
I'm a Yankee Doodle Dandy.
Boris called him a god. He walks, stands right next to Laurie, just dumbfounded, and goes, "The man is a god." Which, wait, did we even mention that who plays Boris?
Go for it, baby.
No, I forgot his name.
Alfred Molina.
Alfred Molina, which is another callback. Which is another callback to our first 5 podcasts. He was the sorcerer in The Company.
R.V. Chariti, baby.
Yeah, I loved how many callbacks we got in this podcast. Because this is our wrap up. We're gonna do like a 5 episode. Well, I guess it turned into 6 episodes, but we have this block, and we had several callbacks to all of our movies.
I love that too.
Yeah. Anyway, moving on. I thought it was cute. Yeah, but moving on.
So the day is saved. The day is saved, basically.
Right.
The bomb is not going to kill a bunch of ambassadors, and it was all done through accidentally and klutzery. But again, if you accept the coincidences, it all made sense. And just going back one more time, I like the fact that in the end, what our hero needed to do was just to overcome his stage fright. And that's how he won the day. That's
Right.
nice. That's nice.
I think it's cute. Very well written. Very well written.
So the villains want out of here, and they give him the 2 cases of cash.
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to be a pedant here. I went ahead, I looked it up. It's way wrong. The 2 cases that they have, they're big ones. You know, they're not like suitcase size, but they're big, chunky, like blocks of leather and stuff with handles on them. But 3 million pounds. I did some math. Go ahead and take a guess. Why don't we play a little game with this? Dave, how much do you think 3 million pounds? Now, keep in mind, the British note, and they don't use the euro, even if this was like modern day. Remember, the Brits never adopted the euro and still used the pound. The highest pound note that they have is the 50. We have 100.
They don't even have 100?
No. They don't have 100. They have a 50.
Jeez.
All right. 3 million pounds in 50-pound notes. How much do you think that would weigh?
Well, you'd have to cut that. So you would need 1.5 million bills. No, you need.
In each case, yeah.
150,000 bills.
150,000 bills, sure.
How much would a stack weigh? Well, one of those stacks is probably what, like a pound or half a pound or something like that. Like, you know, you get those like bank wrapped stacks of like what, $10,000 or something.
Man, just take a guess, because you're not gonna be close.
I don't know, 50 pounds
For each case?
Yeah, probably for each case. Or maybe
252.
No.
Yep.
Wow.
3 million pounds in 50-pound notes, unless I fucked up my math, would be 504 pounds in weight, and take up a lot more volume than what we're looking at here. This is one of the reasons that, by the way, that the US dollar is the most used currency in the black market and in criminal activities like around the world.
Really?
Yeah, it's like for value, it's the lightest.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Anyways, I had fun with that. Sometimes I just have to look things up like that for some reason.
Yeah.
Wallace is really excited. He thinks like, "Oh, cool! It's the end of the story. I got the money." Well, he still doesn't. He doesn't have the girl yet, but he's gonna resolve that.
He thinks it's fake money.
No. Don't blow that yet. But he puts the bomb. He puts the doll, which has the bomb into it in one of the cases, because he's like, hey, don't tell anyone, but I want to keep this as a souvenir. He's like really excited. He's jazzed. Yeah. He feels like this is the end of his story.
Yeah.
The villains, for some reason, when he's distracted by something, I think at this point, maybe it's his brother coming up to him. While he's distracted, they grab one of the cases of cash and completely unnecessarily make their escape by stealing a helicopter.
Yeah.
I guess now that we've talked it through and we talked about their sad budget situation, maybe they're trying to cut their losses and still have $1.5 million pounds.
He says maybe we should go for half or something like that. He makes a comment.
Sure.
Let's just cut our losses and try and go for half, and then he sneaks one of the cases.
Escaping by helicopter seems totally unnecessary at this point.
Yeah.
There seems like a lot of different ways that you could escape from this hotel with this bag of cash.
Yeah.
Taxi, walking.
Yeah.
Fucking catch a bus. Whatever. Yeah. I don't know why you need to except for the natural impulse of all villains, especially in the 80s and still lasting into the 90s, to always get to a high place when the end of the movie is coming near. It's just like it's instinctive in them, you know? Like climb stairs, get somewhere high, get to a tall cliff, get to the top of the building. They just naturally gravitate toward that. But they take off in a helicopter. You know?
They wasn't even their own helicopter. They like stole the helicopter.
Right. And then they blow themselves up. Now you can talk about funny money. Just
well, I didn't get to bring up the fastest gun.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, at some point, we presume Boris, after seeing, like, he goes, this man is a god. I guess he decided he's going to retire and just open up a real butcher shop for himself and go into business in retirement because he's just not good enough. You know, after seeing such a highly skilled agent, he's gonna hang up his spy hat or something. And so, as a gift, he gives Wallace this little, I guess, pistol that's like engraved. That was like a gift from like his superior or something.
KGB. I think he specifies KGB here.
Yeah, and he goes, "Hey, fastest gun in the East." Huh? Anyway, I laughed out loud at that. Just the way he said it too, because he was super serious the whole movie, and now he's just like, fastest gun in the East, huh? You know. And he gives it to him as a gift. So how did I say that? Because I laughed out loud at that.
Yeah, his final scene in the movie is, he comes up. I think he comes up behind Wallace. He's got the drop on him.
Yeah.
Wallace turns around, and it looks like it's Coyton's.
Yeah.
You know, he could just squeeze the trigger and kill Wallace right here, but instead, he like grabs him, kisses him fiercely on both cheeks, and if you pay close attention, he like looks him in the eye, and he also like cocks his head to the side like a little to make sure you are looking in my eyes.
Yeah.
Before he tells him this, you know.
Yeah.
Before he tells him, you are the fastest gun in the East. You are the greatest. I'm retiring.
Yeah.
I can't compete against this shit.
Oh yeah. But yeah, so after that, I think he goes out with Laurie.
Wallace goes out with Laurie, right?
Yeah, Wallace goes out with Laurie, and he opens the case and he sees his doll is missing. So he realizes he's only got one case and that they took the one with the doll, and he's really upset. And I had mentioned like fake money or whatever. Wallace seems to think this is like fake money because it's all part of the theater of life, but it's actual British pounds. So there's like a little romance scene.
Well, he doesn't know, but that's a joke. He doesn't know what British money looks like.
Yeah.
So he looks at, all these British pounds, and he's just like, oh, this is just funny money. And he's sad that he lost his doll. And Laurie mistakes these sentiments for the idea that he doesn't care about money, because she's looking at £1.5 million.
Yeah.
But he's just saying like, oh, this is just nothing, right?
Yeah.
So like that to her, she mistakes that as thinking that he doesn't care about money. Because remember that was
his statement. He was upset the doll was missing, and he's like, she's like, yeah, but you got the money, and he's like, yeah, but it's all pretend, it's all fake. The doll was beautiful,
Right.
like the most ridiculous statement.
The doll was real.
Yeah, right.
Who's the doll?
Right. And then she offers.
No. She's the doll.
Oh, that's clever.
That's what she's hearing.
Right.
Because remember, like I know we don't use that terminology anymore, but for a long time, like the lady love in a movie, that's the doll.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's clever. I mean, she thought about the Russian doll, but because that's why she offers the kiss at the end as like, well, this is something real. You know what I mean? Because she sees that he valued the doll as something beautiful. But I didn't even think about that. That's clever writing. He's a whole man now, or he's grown because he got forced into his flaw. Right?
Yeah, I like that. Yeah. And then he cares about sentimental things.
Yeah.
That he cares about beauty and
Yeah, he sees things valuable that are, like unique, the one of a kind, like the girl at the end.
experiences. He values an experience more than he values money.
Right.
And that's enough for her. And she gives him a big kiss, and back and forth timing. That's when the villains happen to be blowing themselves up. So you get one of those funny things where, like, two people kiss and there just happens to be an explosion going off in the background, and they say, like, "Wow, was that good for you?"
Yeah.
So we're done with the plot. The villains are dead. Boris is retired. Wallace doesn't know it yet, but I guess at some point Laurie's gonna clue him in on the fact that it's not funny money, and they have a bunch of cash to go on vacation to some Caribbean island or something.
Yeah, some sort of tropic, resort type of place. Yeah, but we get another fun blunder. They're just sitting on the beach, and this waiter shows up with like some tropical cocktails and coconuts. Instead of like a glass, they got the coconuts with these fancy straws and flowers. And he starts getting allergic to the guy's Old Spice, is the common joke, the running gag has been throughout the movie, and kind of blunders his way into knocking this guy out. And two gentlemen with sunglasses and suits on walk up to him and start clapping, and so we discover that waiter was a plant and had the cocktails poisoned. I was like, what kind of poison was it?
Amazonian frog poison.
Oh yeah.
Which apparently only one agent in 1,000 detects the frog poison.
Let alone being able to avoid it.
So this is like a final test. This is a test for them where this is the CIA, right? Who haven't been involved in this movie.
Right.
But apparently they caught wind of his escapades that were part of the movie, and they're interested in recruiting him, but they want to put him through a final test.
Yeah.
Which is to try to kill him with Amazonian frog poison, which only one agent in 1,000 ever detects.
Right.
What's wrong with this, Dave? What's wrong with this scenario?
What are they going to kill? How many people have they killed poisoning him trying to get the 1 out of 1,000? I'm putting this down as my worst trade craft, and I think we both agree on this.
This is sheer inanity. This is also like, they also say that they usually observe each of their prospects for 12 to 18 months.
Yeah.
You were talking about you flagged, I don't know where you placed it, but you didn't like the brick wall in La Femme Nikita after investing all of these resources into training an agent and then possibly throwing it away on a roll of the dice. These guys are just fucking nuts.
Yeah.
Are you telling me their usual operating behavior is to observe each candidate for 12 to 18 months and then take a 1 in 1,000 chance that person is gonna survive? What? Wait, what's Jesus? Okay, wow. No, that's out of control. Wait, holy shit. Oh, fuck. I think they broke our buzzer.
Oh, what?
Mara? What's going on with that?
The center's tradecraft analysis algorithm has been overloaded. Estimated time to restore function is not yet known.
Okay, so, yeah, dear, could you, see if you could just get that repaired for our next series? I guess we don't need it anymore for this one. Actually, we're gonna need it again. We're gonna need it again in a few minutes for the wrap up. Do you think you could have it fixed by then?
Unlikely that the system can be repaired that quickly. I have downloaded an alternative sound effect that can be stripped into the episode in post-production.
Okay, thanks. That'll be great. Yeah, Dave. That is not that's not worst tradecraft of this movie. That is the worst tradecraft of the podcast so far. 100%. 100%.
Yeah. Well, we get a good line out of this scene too.
Hit me.
Yeah, they basically recruit him to be an assassin, and he's thinking that they're from Hollywood trying to get him to be an actor. They called him a superstar, so he mistakes the superstar comment as they're from Hollywood. So he's talking about, man, I'll do 6 hits a week. And they're like, 6? He's like, no, 5. And I want to do one for free. I want to do kids or old people at least once a week. You know, and in their mind, he's like offering to kill kids and old people, but in his mind, he's trying to do some charity work as like a celebrity or something. And everything ends with like a cute scene of them and credits roll, and we have finished The Man Who Knew Too Little.
All right, so David, do you think we're ready to come in from the cold now?
Absolutely, let's do it.
Agents, please report for debriefing on this operation.
Groundhog Day is like a sincerely like 5-star super rewatchable film of all eternity.
Yep.
This is kind of a throwaway, but it's a throwaway that I like. I think I think the rewatchability is there. I appreciate that the script survives close scrutiny, and there's slight jokes in here that I think just kind of keep getting funnier over time, over watches. I don't know. What else am I gonna say? Solid 3.
Yeah.
Solid 3 stars for me.
I'm pretty much also gonna give it a 3. I mean, like Todd said, Bill Murray doing Bill Murray stuff. The story's really cute. I like how tight, the story is as well. It's not like super laugh out loud funny. It's kind of one of those movies that, like, if they were on TV, you'd watch, but I'm not gonna go out of my way to watch it, But it's definitely a movie you should see, like, at least maybe once, because it's just kind of a fun movie, like, especially if you're really into Bill Murray. But yeah, I'm gonna give it a solid 3 too.
It's up against some weird, like, like a funny thing, something I feel like we got to mention is like 1997 is, I think, like a book was written about 1997 recently and the movies that came out in this year, and how great a year for movies it was. This movie, like, it's kind of a bit of a throwback. Like, it feels like a leftover of the 80s, really. Like, it's not really standing up in its own zone. When in 1997, like, if you had a choice of like, what movie am I going to go to see, like, you could have gone and seen LA Confidential. You could have gone and seen The Fifth Element, Men in Black, Jackie fucking Brown.
Wow.
As far as like, cool action movies, Con Air.
Oh, what?
Yeah.
Wow, that is quite the list.
Alien Resurrection. This is also when Austin Powers comes out. So let's note that, like, if you want to, like, let's say you're just looking at it from a movie studio perspective, you want to put out a spy movie farce. If you're putting this movie out, The Man Who Knew Too Little, you obviously don't know that someone else is working on Austin Powers,
right.
International Man of Mystery.
Right.
because that blows this out of the water.
Yeah.
According to certain metrics. Like, when you do the Google of it and it shows like all the movies, you know what? The Man Who Knew Too Little doesn't even show up on a list of like 50 movies. It's like, in the grand scheme of things, it's weirdly forgettable. I still stand by my 3 stars, but this is like a 3-star movie that is out of time. It's too little, too late. Yeah. This is a 3-star movie in 1987. It's kind of a nothing by 1997 because things are really heating up, you know? There's
Yeah.
a lot of people doing really fucking great things. Like, anyways, I wanted to say that.
Yeah.
I also gotta say real quick, I really love Consuela.
Oh my God, that was so adorable.
Isn't she quietly hilarious?
Yeah.
Her sad little face.
Yeah.
Remember we talked about like the goons are just like, 9 to 5ers that are just cashing their checks.
Hmm.
She is definitely a 9 to 5er.
Yeah. And then it's like all the scenes with her, it's always stuff that are out of the ordinary and she doesn't know how to react. So she's kind of like in an awkward position.
She just kind of goes with it, and she just like, I don't know, she's just like a sad little puppy.
Yeah.
She's cute.
Yeah. Super
But
cute.
our movie is not about sad little puppy, or our podcast is not about sad little puppy faced
No.
British maids. Our podcast is about tradecraft.
Yep.
We better run down through our hits again. This is here are my bests. Number 3, the goons using the newspaper to cover their shots at Wallace on the ledge. Number 2, Dagenhurst and his flunky using jargon when they're on an open radio. When they're talking about killing someone, don't actually talk about killing someone. Use, again, it's the man who knew too little. We're scraping really hard for this shit. Number 1 best, keeping Spencer in the dark. Even though that came to bite them on the ass, I appreciated, and it was important in the movie, so like it's twofer, that their man Spencer was just sent in to do one job, and there was no reason to tell him, like, because we're planning on killing some ambassadors. So that was my number 1.
Yeah.
2, 3. How about you? Your best again? Remind us.
My number 3 was actually had nothing to do with the main spy plot. It was when he went over to his brother's house and made a fool of himself in front of the fancy guests. And then they asked what he did, and then the wife was like, "Oh, he's in the movie business." And they're like, "Ah, that answers that." Then my number 2 was the dressing room scene where he gave Boris the shake. And then my number 1 was the pens with the syringes and how they executed the leg wrapping and how they executed just shooting him in the lobby with sticking him with the syringe. It's very synchronized. Yeah.
How about your worst?
My worst is my number 3 was looking down the barrel when Wallace just looks down the barrel of a gun, even though in his mind it's probably fake. It could be blanks or whatever, but still, it's just, and then my number 2 was he left the note that had Spencer's name and the address on the phone booth when he got the information. And then, as both Todd and I agreed, the number 1 was poisoning all the candidates of these high elite spy masters or assassins. So yeah.
We still gotta call it a spade, and
Yeah.
I mean, that's dumb.
Yeah.
My number 3, I think I was trading it out, but whatever. My first number 3 I had was Boris overestimating Wallace just based on one missed shot. That was pretty bad.
Yeah.
The theater people and the police not thinking to ring up the client immediately after someone got shot.
Yeah.
And I think I wanted to trade out that thing with Boris overestimating Wallace was also for the villains I'm not sure which one it was, but just basically overall bad tradecraft in this movie is people not making the call to the person that they should call immediately after something happens. Like, okay, you just got to call that Spencer, your guy Spencer, instead of doing his job, just tried to kill your friend. You have a radio that you could use to call Spencer and say, "Hey, buddy, you feeling all right? What's going on with you?" You know?
Yeah.
But instead, you make a bunch of other calls. So like that's overall like the main bad tradecraft in here was just people not calling people when the right people when they should. Okay, which undermines my whole like clockwork thing I said about the movie at the beginning. But whatever. What's our redaction? It's
I'm gonna go with a 4.5.
straight off the gate.
Powers. We have to save the 5 for Austin Powers.
I'm with you, buddy. No
Yeah.
argument there. No argument. No discussion needed. This is a highly redacted movie. It's got no basis in reality whatsoever, except for maybe a couple of tiny little things. What was our best again? Is either of our bests gonna save this? Keeping Spencer. Yeah.
Compartmentalizing the information.
There are a couple things. There are just a couple of things that barely save this movie from being a 5 redacted rating. But as you said, we got to save that 5. We got to save that 5.
For Austin Powers, absolutely. And that's the end of our show. Thanks for listening. If you'd like to reach out to us, you can find us on Twitter at spies_like us. Visit us on our website at www.spieslikeus.net. You know, find out about upcoming episodes. Also, what'll really help us out is if you give us a review on wherever you found our podcast, either on iTunes or your Android app or YouTube or wherever you listen to us. Even if you didn't like the show, just give us a review. It'll help us, give us feedback so we can make the show better. And it can also help other people who haven't found the show yet find out about us. Hey, Moira, initiate Protocol 9.
Protocol 9 initiated. This podcast will self-destruct in 20 seconds. The preceding transmission sampled the songs Ice Cold by Audionautics, Enter the Party by Kevin MacLeod, and sound effects from freesound.org. Attributions and links are found at spieslikeus.net. Editing by Todd Hostetler.